Man, oh man, I'm excited for this episode because doing this intro, I know what you guys are about to hear, but man, you guys are going to learn some good stuff today about leadership. If you want to be the best person you could be, if you want to maximize your potential, if you want to turn your muse into reality, probably going to have to be a leader at some point in time, and you want to do it the right way, leadership the right way. And on the podcast this week, I have Pierre Quinn, and we cover some things: how to maximize your influence as an emerging leader, leading a team the right way, the key to becoming and maintaining the best leadership you possibly can through this thing called the leadership square, which he'll describe, the virtue of persistence, and many more topics that we cover in this one. It's a little bit longer episode because we're covering so much stuff, so many value packed little tidbits, so it's a little bit longer, but you definitely want to stay tuned in for the whole episode. Pierre is a minister, he's a public speaker, he's an author, he's an educator, he's a leadership coaching specialist. This guy does a lot, and I got him to come on the show and take some time to just sprinkle a little bit of his expertise on us that he shares with like some of the companies that he works with, such as the LFA and Kaiser Permanente and a whole bunch more. Thank you guys for all the support that you guys have been giving over all these new episodes in the season 2 of the Muse Report. Screenshot your phone like you guys have been doing. Even if you're a recurring listener, I would still like to know that you're tuning in, that you're remaining loyal, and screenshot that phone. You could tag us on it at the Muse Report Podcast on Instagram, or you can follow us on Facebook as well, to just get some little clips, pictures, and updates about the podcast and these little bite-sized digestible bits. That's about all I have for you guys. We're going to get right into this value-packed episode with Pierre Quinn. Is the theme music loading? All right, yeah, here we go.
Loading.
It's a case study for success.
Be teachable.
What better way to learn than to just ask?
The learning process becomes a journey.
Turning dreams into realities.
Part of execution is totally believing whatever you're doing is going to work.
What are your passions and what are your gifts? And that's where it really starts.
Chances are for taking. Take a chance on yourself.
Any and everyone is capable of being a leader.
You're not going to have all the answers immediately.
Wow.
Mentors to expose you to things that you otherwise wouldn't know.
It was all I thought about and dreamed. Like I would literally get up in the morning, practice, because I knew the time would come.
Just do it. What you do now, and just on overall, I'm sure you do this all the time. You kind of give your little introduction, so you can do that for us.
Yeah. My name is Pierre Quinn, and I have a multifaceted career. Currently, I serve as a senior pastor of a church in the DMV area, but I'm also an entrepreneur. I started a company a couple of years ago where I focus on leadership development, and I do that through public speaking. I do that through leadership coaching. I do that through writing books, and I do that through my podcast, the Leading While Green podcast. And I'm somewhere in a happy marriage between traditional ministry and ministry in the marketplace, helping people from all walks of life become the best leaders that they can be.
Awesome. So, first thing I want to just get into is, how did you kind of get into this role? How did you start out as a leader? Did you start out as an expert? In fact, the young Pierre Quinn in school, maybe let's say start from high school, what was it looking like? Did you know that you were going to be here? Did you always have a vision of this kind of like what you want to do and be in a leadership position, coaching other leaders, or did this kind of just happen by osmosis or something like that?
It was, I think part of my story is the classic story of young people or young males that grow up in a church context. So my faith community had identified some particular gifts inside of me at a young age. And I had the gift of speaking, of being able to communicate, and using that gift, practicing, sermons, AYs, different things in church. I started to hear people say, you're going to be a good leader one day. You're going to be an effective leader one day. You're going to go on to do great things. But the challenge was there wasn't anybody who could give me a blueprint or a guide on what leadership was. And I think sometimes when we see people with certain innate abilities or skills, we make the direct translation or direct correlation to leadership. So someone is good at speaking, they're going to be a good leader. Someone's good at organizing, someone's creative, they're going to be a good leader. I think the abilities that we use to characterize good leadership, you're born with those in some respect. Mm-hmm. But the application of those abilities to help transform people, to get things done, to get people to come to a consensus on what challenges and obstacles need to be faced, that's something that has to develop. It develops in the crucible of hardship. It develops through classes. It develops through training. But I think we're born with certain skills, but the cultivation of those skills and the application is something that you're not born with, that has to be innately fashioned and seen over time.
So when did you start to kind of make that change? Because at some point there's like a switch to say, okay, I can do this and I'm going to pursue this. When did that happen for you? It happens at different stages of life for everybody. So
I think the first like aha moment for me was a freshman year in college. Mm-hmm. And we had, freshman orientation, the normal freshman orientation is basically the same no matter what school you go to. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of food, a lot of free stuff, a lot of rah-rah getting you excited about school. Yeah. And I went out for freshman class president. Now, I didn't know anything about the school. I didn't know anything about, I just knew in order to be a class president, a class officer, you had to give a speech. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I said, okay, I got that. That's in the bag. So the day of the presentations of candidates, I'm sitting there waiting for my turn. I jot down some notes on a napkin. I go up there, give my 4 to 5 minute speech, and I win class president by a landslide. The challenge was now after you're elected class president, you got to do stuff.
Oh yeah, from that part.
And I'm like, whoa. I ain't signed up for this. I signed up to like talk and hang out.
Yeah.
And I started realizing that I didn't have enough tools in my tool belt to be the leader that my persona on stage projected me to be. And I started in a little way. I just started being a bit more intentional about following up my talk with clearly measurable, quantifiable things that impacted change in the lives of other people.
So it sounds to me like you were just a naturally gifted speaker from the jump.
Yeah, I think I'm safe making that argument. So I grew up in a family where, traditional, non-traditional, Black family, depending on how you look at it. I grew up in a family where you just couldn't, if adults were talking in a room, you just couldn't be in the room.
Yeah.
unless you had something of entertainment value or you could speak to whatever current was going on. So I kind of cut my teeth as a kid, being able to sometimes get into adult conversations and speak coherently or make people laugh. And that was something that just was natural to me all the way up into the classic story of, preaching my first sermon at 9 years old or whatever that classic story is. Mm-hmm. And people saying at that age, man, there's something here that clearly it seems like you're born with it. And I think a lot of us, I'm sure all of us in some form or fashion, we are born with one unique characteristic or trait that we're supposed to use to make a difference in the world. I think the difference between those of us who make a difference in the world and those of us who don't, we're intentional about cultivating and working and stretching and growing and being coached on how to use whatever that unique gift or skill is. So mine was speaking, and I just, I would wing it, man. I went all the way up until maybe my junior year of college. I would just wing it. I would make up presentations on the fly the day of class, and I would get good grades. But after a while, it just, it was just a great presentation. It's like cotton candy. It's good for a moment, but when the moment's gone, what really do you have left over? So I noticed the gap in there, and eventually, it took me really probably to my mid-20s to really be a bit more intentional about cultivating this idea of leadership.
So what did you study in college?
Yeah, so I first went to college as an architecture major.
Wow.
And I majored in architecture for like 3 weeks, or more like 2 weeks. Because, they started talking about all the stuff about math. And I was like, nah, That's not what I'm here for. I'm not here for that.
I'm here to build buildings, not do math.
Yeah. So, I guess you need math to build buildings. But
so.
I've always been a creative. I would always draw. That was part of my life and my narrative growing up. So I said, okay, I'm going to try architecture. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And then I was going to take a drawing class my freshman year. And this is sad. This is a sad admission for me, man. The only reason why I did not take a drawing class my freshman year was because the drawing class, intro to drawing, was 3 hours long. I said, I don't want to spend 3 hours in class as a freshman. I'm just not here for it.
Yeah.
So really, my freshman year was the end of my art career. I tried digital media. It wasn't as cool as it is now. And I floundered around maybe for a couple of years. Just undeclared, just taking general studies. And finally, after some time away, I went back to school and I declared a communication major. And I did a graduate degree. I did an undergrad degree and a graduate degree in communication. And then eventually I went back and got another graduate degree in theology.
So what made you want to go back and so did you have a profession and a career before you went back to seminary? Or was it kind of like all grouped together?
Yeah, so I guess I fall in the category of, in our particular denominational circle, what you would call a second career pastor. I finished undergrad. I went to grad school. As soon as I started grad school, I started teaching in the communication department at my school. And I've taught off and on maybe for about a decade, different communication classes, intro to public speaking, interpersonal communication, group dynamics and leadership. So that kind of mix and match of things. And then I was working at the same time in fundraising and development. I got a job with a nonprofit in the Washington, D.C. area. And I felt classically in religious conversation, I felt classically what we call a call or a nudge, or, just a compulsion to go back and to go to the seminary. And part of the reason why I went back, it wasn't just a nudge, but part of the reason why I went back was I was having doors closed because people said that I was a quote unquote good speaker, but they didn't feel like I had the label of theological training to be in church pulpits on a consistent basis. So I've had, conversations with people as a professional that would want me to come to their church and speak. And we would talk back and forth. We would talk about bio, ask, well, when did you go to seminary? And I would say, I didn't. And there have been several times when people said, okay, well, let me get back to you. And let me get back to you usually means, sorry, we can't invite you. So I was tired of theological training being a barrier to. So I didn't go to theological training necessarily to be a pastor. I went to have that credibility.
Yeah.
So that would open doors.
So I know that, well, I have your book right here and I'm almost done reading it actually. Thank you for that again, by the way. It's really good because it's easy to read. Some books are just hard to read. Like,
man, that was the point. I got a short attention span, bro.
Yeah, I was just like, wow, this is so easy to read. And some of the things that you were talking about, which is really the meat of what I want to get into, is for emerging leaders, because that's what I consider myself
Yeah.
as.
Yeah.
And for someone who is, it's kind of difficult because you don't really classify I want to be a leader, like as in a path for a career or for a destination. But you know that somewhere in there that's probably going to happen. And for someone, let's say they're like a student body leader, or they are going into their profession out of college, and now you're like back at the bottom of the totem pole, and you kind of have to establish your credibility all over again. How do you go about being a leader, but you're clearly at the at the bottom? That's kind of where I'm going from, because you don't really have much on your resume yet. You don't really, have all the credibility. You may not have the business. Let's say if they're entrepreneur, you don't necessarily have the business already to back up behind your name. You're kind of just starting with nothing. How do you go from there?
I think it's maybe a reorientation of how we describe or how we characterize leadership. For a long time, we viewed leadership as title. So I'm CEO, I'm president, I'm department chair. That's clearly a distinguishable title, which makes you a leader. But the more that you think about it, and the more that you discuss or dissect the application of it, leadership, one of my favorite leadership writers, John Maxwell, describes leadership as influence. Now from an academic standpoint, and let me tell you, because I've studied it from an academic standpoint and from just a regular trade publication standpoint. Academicians don't like John Maxwell because they feel like it's too, like, your definition is too simple, and they're into like Gary Uckel and Peter Northouse, and these are like academic giants when it comes to leadership literature, and they talk about leadership processes and leadership design. But when I coach people, when I talk to people, when I travel and speak, I say there's at least one person who's making a decision about their life based on the decisions that you make about your life. And at that level, no matter your place in the hierarchical structure of the organization, you are a leader. So if I'm new, like if I'm starting from scratch, if I'm going, say tomorrow I do a job shift and I leave pastoral ministry and I go be a leadership consultant at a major Fortune 500 company, and I have to start off as like a junior consultant, or an intern or whatever. I'm thinking, okay, so how do I make my difference in this organization? I'm probably going to do one of three things all working together. And I think it's applicable, especially recent graduates, young leaders. Number one, I'm going to take a lot of people out for coffee. If you don't drink coffee, tea. I'm not a coffee drinker. I do a chai latte, just so I can look cool at Starbucks and not drink coffee.
Right.
But
I need to figure out that art too, because I don't drink coffee, but I know getting coffee is like a thing, and
that's a thing, bro.
I need to figure it out.
So just get tea, man. Just get tea. But the reason why I'm taking people out to coffee is because I'm asking questions. I'm asking questions. When you go to a new job, a new environment, a new leadership position, you have to learn. A big part of it is learning the culture, and you learn culture through conversation, because there's some things that people who have been in the job longer than you are going to tell you through conversation that you're not going to get in orientation. That's not going to be in the welcome packet during the visit to HR. It's not going to come up. But as you converse with people in the coffee/lunch, I'm taking people out to eat because we're just different when we eat. We're a bit more relaxed. And I'm asking tons of questions. Tons and tons and tons and tons of questions. As a matter of fact, I'm leveraging my newness. It's an important thing when you're in a new responsibility, a new role. You have a window where people will give you a pass. And you could start off by saying, Mr. Davis, man, I'm new here and I'm just trying to get my bearings. Would you be willing to go for coffee for about 15 minutes, or can I buy you lunch? And you just tell me about your experience with the organization, or your experience in your role, or the advice you have for me? Or if you were starting all over again, what would you do differently? What I'm asking is, give me the culture, give me the insights of what's going on, and tell me what to look out for. But I'm asking those questions over and over and over and over again. That's like a big thing, a huge thing. The second thing that I'm doing is I am making myself available for feedback. So the first one is just the questions about the culture. The second thing is, okay, give me some pointers about what I'm doing. What do you see? What would you suggest that I do? Because when you do that, you're telling people you are willing to learn. It's hard for some of us who have been leaders in higher education from a student standpoint. You were a club president, you were a student government president, you were a leader of a traveling ministry or traveling extracurricular group, and you were in charge. People came to you for answers, and you were sweet with it. You took care of everything. But now you're not the man anymore. And most of us, when we get to a new place, no one cares about what you did in college.
Nope.
They don't care that you were student body president or your club raised this or you did a mission trip around the world. They don't care about none of that. They want to know, can you do this job? And to prove to them that you can do the job, you have to make yourself open to feedback. So, I'm asking questions about the culture. I'm asking questions about personal feedback in my professional career. And then I'm doing my own research. I'm getting my hands on anything that I can get my hands on, my ears on. Podcasts like the Muse Report. What are the popular books out there? What are the YouTube videos? What are the free webinars? Any information that I can get to grow. Because if you're not learning, you're not leading. You have to continue to fill your toolbox up with stuff so that you can apply it in your particular situation. So learn the culture. Learn to be okay with feedback, and then learn to learn and keep resourcing yourself. And that works for any level, for any age, for any organization.
So, if as a leader, you have a team usually that you're leading, or just people who are following you. But sometimes when you're a leader, you have to do something, or have to have your team do something that they don't necessarily want to do, or something that really no one wants to do. How do you, because I know that like a part of like what defines great leaders is being able to like have people do things, even though they may not like want to do it, they do it because they like you as the leader. I forgot who quoted it. I think it might have been Benjamin Franklin or George Washington or one of those old like patriotic people. But they were saying like leadership is basically like getting people to do things that they don't want to do and enjoy it. So how do you go about doing that? Like, how is it speech? Is it how you approach people? Is it how you build relationships? What are the nuances of having a group of people, and even if you're making them do things that they don't want to do, they're still like eager to do it because they like you as a leader?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the things that you mentioned. So relationships are important. There's levels of leadership. So there's the first one, and this is in no particular order, but you look at positional leadership. Positional leadership is I am executive vice president. I am coordinator. I am manager. You are a leader on paper, and your respect only really comes from the fact that you're a leader on paper. Up from that is what you call relational leadership, and you make a difference in the lives of other people because they like you, and that's fine. That's good. That's a good place to start, but you need to take it up a notch from there. So the notch up from there is the type of leadership where you're the effective or impactful leader. It's not just that you're a leader on paper. It's not just people like you. You actually get stuff done. You actually, like, when people put stuff on your desk, that happen. And then the level up from that is you're actually beginning to train and pour into other leaders. So relationships are key. They undergird the whole thing. But one of the things you got to ask yourself is, okay, why do people not like this? And that's the first assessment. Do you not like it because it's not your job, because it's not your gifts, it's not your skill set? Because if it's a part of the job requirement, and you agree to this particular job requirement, how you feel about it, I wouldn't say it's negligible, but if the job is to staple papers, and you say as a paper stapler that you don't like stapling papers, you might be in the wrong job.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, there's just like a certain aspect of because you could have two teams who are getting the job done, but there's a certain level of morale with it, because I just feel like that's just more enjoyable. I know for me, when I have my business, I want my team to like, even though you might not like everything you're doing, like I don't necessarily like sitting down and editing these podcasts. Like,
Right.
It's just tedious. You don't feel like doing it. But the end result, I know that I'm making a difference. I know that once it's out there, I'll feel the reward of putting it out there. It's kind of like the same thing, even though the leader might be asking you to do something that you necessarily don't feel like doing. It's just like two different aspects. If you don't like the leader or whatever, then you're probably not going to do as good of a job, or you might not do it as quickly or efficiently. That's kind of just what I'm trying to figure out as far as I try to build my team in the future. Like, how do I make sure that, I guess this comes from just being a good person, but I don't know if you had any other insights on it.
It's a little more to it than that, I would say. I think the first part is mission. Like, mission is very important. This idea of what are we doing this for? So say the mission of our organization is to end hunger in the Tennessee Valley. Say we're a nonprofit. We're on a mission to end hunger in the Tennessee Valley. Then as a leader, I need to be able to help you understand how the things, especially the things that you don't like to do, contribute to the mission of ending hunger in the Tennessee Valley. So I don't like staff meeting, but if staff meeting gets us closer to ending hunger, then I can endure staff meeting. I don't like doing reporting at the end of a cycle, but if the reporting function puts us in a better position to live out our mission, then I can get through the reporting function because I see the benefit of it. So continuing to remind people of the mission of the organization that you're a part of, the mission of your business, and then also show them how that mission connects with their personal mission. Because for the most part, people don't primarily go to work because they like your organization. They go to work because they're trying to feed their family. Like, that's their first mission. Secondarily, or even tertiary, is because of the environment or experience. So if I can show you how fulfilling the mission of our organization, of our club, of our business helps you fulfill the mission of taking care of your life and your family, then I do a better chance at getting through the difficult parts. And the other part is relationship. It is bringing your humanity into your experience. It is talking about things. I know we have to be very careful in our work environments nowadays, but much of the work model is built on the Industrial Revolution that puts you on an assembly line and just said, stamp this thing out. And at the end of it, we have a car, we have a tank, we have a gun. That we don't survive in that environment anymore. And our work life spaces are integrated. And when you're having a bad day, you're bringing your bad day to work. So as a leader, I need to be able to create an environment where I can treat you like a real person, where I can acknowledge you, where I can coach you up, where we can have a quick conversation. I mean, we're not holding hands and saying kumbaya 8:30 every single morning, like they do in some organizations. But when I connect with your humanity, and I'm a nice person and I treat you well and I respect when you need time and we can talk through challenges, that connected with a sense of mission creates a more harmonious work environments. And the crazy thing about it is that organizations that struggle with it, they bring in people like me to tell them some of this rudimentary stuff that they should have done anyway. Like I say, let's sit down and talk to each other about some challenges in the workplace. And I've had people say, man, we've never talked. We've never had an offsite. We've never had lunch and talk about some of these challenges. And I feel better just having talked through them. So remember that people are human, and remember to point people to their personal mission and the mission of the organization. And you can start to develop a healthier workspace.
You refer to this term in your book, Leading While Green, called the leadership square.
Yeah.
and it's something that I've the characteristics of it I've heard other places, but I've never seen it like put together in that way. Could you just quickly explain that to the listeners, like what exactly the leading square is and how it's kind of implemented?
Yeah. So the idea behind it is, well, in the book, I talk about how when you transport bananas from one side of the world to the other, there are specific requirements for the packaging.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why the packaging is a certain way is because they want they want the bananas to arrive in the right condition. So if you don't have the right packaging, things are not going to arrive in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And I argue in the book that if, in order to move your leadership from one place to another, in order for you to get from here to there, your leadership has to have the right packaging. And I came with this concept of a leadership square that has 4 quadrants. And in quadrant number 1, that everybody needs a mentor. Now the danger that we go into sometimes, and I got this from Sam Chan, who wrote the book Leadership Pain. Dr. Sam Chan said that the mistake that many of us make is we look for leaders that are 100 steps of us, 100 steps ahead of us. So you're trying to get a mentor that's like a multimillionaire,
Right.
and you're a broke college student.
Right.
The distance between you and that person is so great that they might not be able to help you as much as you need. So it's good to have people at different stages. So, I'm a broke college student. I'm a senior. Maybe I need to find somebody in addition to the person 100 steps ahead of me. Maybe I need to find somebody, 2-3 years out of school who is doing, 6 figures in their job, because that gap between me and them is much shorter, and it's much more fresh in their minds what they did when they got started. So everybody needs mentors at different phases of their life, and then everybody needs somebody that they're pouring into. Management who says that there is no success without a successor. So if you're not intentional about pouring into somebody else, about helping somebody else in the spaces that you got tripped up on when you were in the same level, you're really limiting your own growth. So section 1, everybody needs a mentor. Section 2, everybody needs people that they're pouring into or mentees. Section 3, everybody needs colleagues. Now, colleagues are people, in your industry or an industry connected to yours that you can call. You could ask for advice, collaboration. The truth is, for many of the high profile jobs that you get at certain places in your career, honestly, bro, it ain't got nothing to do with your resume.
Yeah.
It's all about who you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
All about who you know.
Yeah.
So developing a network of colleagues in your industry and outside of your industry, professionals that you can call on for advice, for resource that you can support, because as your career progresses, you're going to need these people. And in the 4th section of this leadership square, the 4th quadrant is all of us need a set of friends that don't care nothing about your title, that don't care anything about where you work, that authentically love and care for you and support you for you. So if you're a millionaire, if you're a struggling entrepreneur, if you're famous, if you're, if you only got 150 followers on Instagram, some people who are going to be there for you no matter what and support you. And the thing is, everybody can't be in every square. As a matter of fact, everybody shouldn't be. And when you do an assessment, there are times where you may need to move people from one place to another. Like your mentor is not necessarily always your friend. Your colleague isn't necessarily somebody that you can pour into because you guys are, standing shoulder to shoulder. So being able to assess the people in your life and put them in the right places so that your leadership can get from the place it is to the place where it's called to be. So that's the leadership square.
So when you were kind of in my position, did you had a mentor?
Say that again?
So like when you were about my age, early 20s, or starting your career, even whether it was in your secondary career or in your first career, did you find a mentor, and how did you go about that?
Yeah, every stage of my professional career, I've had a mentor. Now, understand that mentors are seasonal most times. You're not, in most cases, you're not going to rock with the same mentor forever because you change and you evolve. So when I was in my early 20s, early to mid 20s, my mentor was actually the department chair of my department at my university. And this lady poured everything that she could into me. She's the one as a department chair, and I was entering the graduate program in communication. She said, okay, you're going to be a teacher. And I said, I have no idea how to teach. And she said, you're going to figure it out. And every day after you teach, you're going to sit in my office and we're going to walk through what you did right. We're going to walk through what you did wrong. And I'm going to show you how to use your craft more than just speaking on stage. When I worked in fundraising and development, I had a different mentor, different coach, an individual by the name of Rob Henry, who is, really big in the fundraising and consulting world. When I started pastoral ministry, I had a group of people that I called on a lot. Probably my biggest mentor in pastoral ministry is a pastor out of Canada by the name of Andre Anderson. So every step of the way, I've had people who wanting nothing from me in return, but authentically wanted to help me get to the place where they knew God was calling me to be.
So did you reach out to them, or did they kind of just see what was in you and kind of just were like, we'll help you through this?
Yeah. So it was a little bit of both. And I've learned that when certain people lean into you, be okay with leaning back into them. I taught college for about 10 years, and professors like want to take an interest in supporting students. But the great number of us as students don't take up the opportunity that the professor presents. Now, they're not going to say, any professor worth their salt is not going to say, listen, if you really want to, get through this college thing, I can help you, I can coach you, I can mentor you, but they'll leave themselves open for that. Mm-hmm. So when I saw my department chair taking an interest in my success, I just had an honest conversation, and I said, I need some help. Can you help me? Can you walk me through this? Can you coach me? Mm-hmm. So I responded to the interest that I saw in her part. Her name is Dr. Delise Stain, and she is a retired teacher. But I responded to the interest that she showed on her part, because people of influence are busy people. Right. And we need to respect that. Just because you hit somebody up on Twitter or DM somebody on Instagram, especially a person that's a major influencer, these people are busy, and you have to recognize that they have a lot of people trying to get in contact with them. So if a person kind of leans in and responds to you, you need to take, depending on the dynamics of the relationship, what they're willing to offer. Sometimes that's a face-to-face. Sometimes that's a 15-minute conversation once a month. But whatever it is, use all of that. For when I was doing fundraising, this individual that helped to mentor me was a consultant. He was a consultant that came in to work with me to coach me up. And I said, man, this guy has tons of knowledge and experience. Let me ask him if he would help me outside of the consulting world. Can I just call you and ask you questions? Can I shoot you an email? Can you talk to me about my job every so often? And then in the pastoral ministry piece, Pastor Andre Anderson he had pastoral experience, and he was just coming to the seminary. But he was 5 years older than me. Had already served as a pastor, second career, had already worked. 5 years older than me. And I said, hey, can I learn from you? And we started off as friends. We're still friends, but I said, hey, can I learn from you? Can you help me out? And he said, yeah. And the best thing to do is, even if you're in a place where people are not leaning into you or taking interest in you, just ask people, and don't be offended when they say no. I've asked so many people for pointers and for help, and a lot of people said no. And here's a little secret. That's one of the reasons why I started my podcast, because some of these major influencers that I was reaching out to, sending random emails, wouldn't give me the time of day.
Oh yeah, I know how that feels. Yeah.
Well, how do I get a 30-minute conversation with them? How do I get 45 minutes of advice that I would have to pay for? oh, I got a podcast. Would you be a guest? And I'm just using the podcast to hack my personal development and to get the mentoring and coaching that I might not have been able to get another way. So
Yeah.
I see you, bro.
Yep. I mean, that's what I'm doing with you right now. I mean, I was telling that in one of the podcasts like maybe 2 weeks ago. I said this is the best networking tool I have discovered, and it's gotten to the point where podcasting it's taking off now, but it's still nowhere close to what it's going to reach in the near future. So like, it's not even a thing where if you ask somebody, can you come speak at this event? Can you come do this show or something like that? On TV, they'd be like, okay, yeah. I mean, this is how much I charge. With this podcast, the podcast culture is kind of like, okay, yeah, I'll just come. And I don't know how long it's gonna stay like that, but I'm getting in on it while the getting is good. So, yeah, definitely.
What's important for young leaders, man, and I wish I had this many years ago. And I'm not that old. I'm only 37, but I wish I had this at 21. And people are more apt to help you if they already see that you've started to build something. If you come to a person of influence with nothing, like, I got an idea, they're busy.
Yeah.
But if you come and say, listen, I've already started, I've got 15 episodes in the can, or, I self-published a book on leadership, or I've spoken 13 places, or, here are my murals, or here, I did an art show, art show at my college campus, and I'm trying to they see a person who is serious and can build something. And you're much more likely to get support after you've already started building than if you just stand there and say, hey, I got an idea. Can you help me? Because we've been burned like that too many times. So if you want help, start doing and ask for help. Don't ask for help before you start doing.
Yeah, you kind of just almost answered my next question. I don't know if it'll be the same answer, but if you saw young Pierre Quinn there, like high school, college, or whatever it is, maybe even younger, I don't know, and you could tell him something to set him up for his future, what would that be?
I would say, don't wait to get on somebody else's platform. Start building your own.
Wow. Yeah.
See, today is amazing, but even back when I was growing up, there were opportunities. So if I had to go back to high school Pierre or early college Pierre, I would have said, every time you go somewhere and you give a sermon or you give a talk or whatever, take the recording with you. And when people ask you, take the recording with you and always have the recording. So when people ask you, you can show them, and I'm an 80s baby. You can give them a cassette tape instead of, and then you have the ability, because you're a young person in your church, you can say, hey, can I practice my sermons at church in some off time on a Tuesday or Wednesday or Sunday? Can I practice, and can you record them for me? And take those recordings and put them on cassette tapes, so that when people ask you, you go from place to place. Hey, young man, I heard you're a young preacher. Yeah. And here's my cassette tape. The version of that today is, as preachers or as speakers, everybody wants a stage. Everybody wants a platform. But now it's YouTube.
Yep.
Now I don't need a stage. Now I set up a camera in my office, and my messages, my motivational, inspirational, spiritual messages, I can give them to the world on YouTube. I can give them to the world on Facebook Live. So yeah, I want to speak at a notable place or a place of renown, but I don't need to wait for stages or platforms or preaching engagements or workshop engagements anymore. And if I had known that 10 years ago, man, life would be different. But that's my advice. Don't wait to get on somebody else's platform. Start building your own. In whatever area you want to change the world, start doing it right now. And eventually the rest of the world, or the rest of the circle, or the sphere where you live, work, and play, eventually they'll take notice and people will respect it.
Yeah, for sure. Now it's like anyone can have a platform, so there's really no excuse. There's no excuse for not building your brand, building what you have to offer to the world right now. If you had a billboard, and let's say like you own the billboard, Cardell Group billboard, and you could say something for everyone who's driving past it on 495, on wherever they're driving, and they see it. What would you want the world to see when they drive past that billboard? Like, what would you want your message to say?
Man, so many things really came flooding through my head, trying to figure this thing out. But I would say the thing that sticks in the top of my mind is, even if it only helps one person, it was worth it.
That's good. Yeah. Especially for people who are at the bottom. Because sometimes you feel like you're not making an impact, and we think that the small numbers aren't significant, but they are, at least to start off with, or really period. Yeah, I mean, let's, you mentioned my book a couple of times, so let me just tell you the honest story about the book and like the Cliff Notes version of the book. I wrote the book. I didn't write a New York Times bestseller. That was not my intention. Okay. I didn't write the best edited book. That was not my intention. My intention was, I got these thoughts in my head. I need to get them out on paper, because initially I need to help other young pastors like me who are in multi-church scenarios, struggling to figure out what they want to do or how to survive. Like, that's my initial. So if it's only 20 people in my conference or in my union of churches that read the book, then I've done my job. That's how I started. If only my mama and 19 other people read this book, then to me, I'm a success. But because I was okay with saying more than 20 people may not ever read it or take notice of it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to commit, and whoever reads it or supports it or critiques it, I'm going to lean in and use that advice and pivot it. It's grown over time. I mean, at the time I was recording this podcast, and I just came back from speaking at a conference in Chicago in an industry that I know nothing about, on the topic of leadership, because I have a book. And the person who did my introduction say, I checked this guy out. He's got some decent reviews on Amazon for his book, and I'm looking forward to hearing his presentation. My intention was 3 years ago wasn't to get on a stage like that. Mm-hmm. It was just to help a couple of people. And because I've been consistent about helping a couple of people here and there, small groups here and there, it's grown over time. And when you are authentic, life is different. When you're honest about your intentions and about being there to help people to grow and change and develop, things open up more for you than if you're just worried about yourself. So 1 person, 2 people, 10 people, start there and be okay. Yeah. Be okay if only 3 people watch your video on Instagram. That's fine. Yeah, I think that's like the telling factor. I mean, if
those 3 people got a message that they need to hear.
If you're okay with only 3 people watching it, including your mom, and you still want to do it and keep doing it, that's the sign that, okay, maybe this is something that you were meant to do. If you feel unmotivated and you stop doing because you're not getting the response that you want, or you don't have the clout that you want, or whatever it is, then maybe this isn't really for you, because you're not authentically passionate about what you're doing. And I what I kind of took from it is, maybe it's better when we're setting goals. We all have these dreams in our head, and dreams are great and everything. You want to do this on this grand scheme, and you have how it's going to work out and all that stuff. But maybe just setting the goal, like you said, I wanted this for just pastors who were going through the same thing as me within my conference, and 20 people. If 20 people looked at it, I was good. I don't want to say set the bar low, because that has a bad connotation with it, but maybe it's easier to keep going if you give yourself a realistic or like a small thing. Like when I first started, I literally did it. I don't even know why I did it. I just put it out there because I had it on my mind. I really didn't expect anyone to listen to it. I put it on my social media just to kind of see, like, is this going to work? And it kind of did. And even though still to this day, I was just talking to somebody the other day. I'm like, man, like, I really thought this episode was going to hit. No, it didn't. Like, people don't care if they don't care. And I'm still okay with just, this small group of people who I know listen to it. It's cool. Yep. It's cool. Even though I wanted it to blow up, I thought it was going to blow up. It didn't blow up. Same consistent numbers. Same people who going to listen are going to listen. And I just being okay with that number, I think is still pushing me to keep going, because I didn't say, I need to have 1,000 listens every episode for me to want to do this. Mm-hmm. So I think just setting the bar, and that's just not necessarily low, but just being okay with small growth is really a key to keep pushing and conquering these small incremental small wins. That's why I call it small wins.
Well, I don't know if you've heard it said before. Maybe you have. It takes 10 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like the people that you see in whatever aspect of life, the people that you see, and it seems like when they, just stepped out on the scene and they have a huge platform and they have this media and marketing machine behind them. Mm-hmm. Look at their backstory. They've been doing this a while.
Yeah.
You just heard about them.
Yeah.
They've been doing it a while. And it's just that while is catching up, that they reached that inflection point, and now is the time for them. But it takes a while. It takes a while, and when it takes a while, stand-up comedians will tell you this. They cut their teeth in clubs and small venues with 10 and 20 people telling bad jokes, and if they made one person laugh during a set, it was worth it.
Yeah.
And then saying, okay, how do I build on that? How do I go from 1 to 2 and 2 to 20 and 20 to 30? But to say, on my debut, in my first night as a stand-up comic, leaving my career as a truck driver to be a stand-up comic, my first night, I'm going to slay it with 300 people in the room and everybody's going to be rolling. Probably not.
Yeah, I just feel like that just sets you up for disappointment and failure. I even said it, like I put on my Instagram story once where it was like, some person put up, I speak like, you're not going to, no L's this year, 2019, blah, blah, you're going to reap your inheritance or something. I said, no, cut it out. Cause you're just, things are going to go wrong. Things aren't going to work out exactly how you want them to work out. And that's okay. That's like a part of life. Don't set yourself up by saying this is what's going to happen or bust. And you fall flat.
Man, if I could give advice like to your listening audience, I would say probably the opposite of that. I would say not the opposite of what you said, but the opposite of the post that you were speaking to. Mm-hmm. My would be take more L's in 2019.
Yep. Yeah.
because it means that you're trying and you're seeing what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And the more that you see what doesn't work, you can refine, you can tweak, you can pivot, and you can see where your lane and your sweet spot is.
Yeah. And this kind of leads into one of my last points and questions. It kind of just remind me of like the cats like an open gym and stuff. Like, like you don't practice. Like, I know you don't practice, but like those guys that when they miss a shot, they act like they're mad that they missed the shot. Like, did you really expect the shot to go in? You don't practice. It's not like you're some purebred shooter that shoots shots every day. You're going to miss because you don't practice. I kind of see the same thing in like life where we keep trying to do these things. I don't know whether it's like build a following on YouTube or start a business or build a brand or become a professional whatever. And people kind of get upset with it's not working, but you haven't put up the reps. Like, you can't be mad if it doesn't work out if you haven't put in the work. And I'm kind of in this stage where I feel like I'm preparing myself in 2019 because I feel like I'm going to miss a lot. And I'm starting to take steps. And I put out a post today just saying like I'm starting to practice the art of taking myself too seriously, because often I get kind of analysis paralysis where I overthink Like,
Mm-hmm.
what are people going to think about what I'm about to say? What do people think about this when I put it out there? Am I even equipped or qualified to do this? All that other kind of stuff. And I'm kind of just starting to be like, well, who cares? I'm just going to act like I'm already what I want to be now, even though in the back of my head, I know I'm not there yet, but I'm about to just act like I am. And I kind of just put it together, taking myself too seriously. But just to like kind of push me, to force me like, okay, now you put yourself out there, you took yourself a little too seriously. Now you have to catch up with the results.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm about to miss a lot. But what is something, I know lots of people are struggling with this, especially in this social media, very sensitive culture kind of that we're in right now, with just conquering that fear of doing what you really feel like you're supposed to be doing, even though it might not be a popular choice, or people might look at you crazy, or you're not even sure that you have the chops to get it done. What is like something that people could do to kind of just like overcome that fear that's holding them back from where they're supposed to be?
Yeah, man. It's a few things. Number one, I think a big part of it is learning to do it scared. No, courage is not the absence of fear. It's moving forward even though you're afraid. And if you can learn to embrace, we try to run away from emotions. Like, no, I'm like, people have asked me certain times at certain spots in my career, like, how do you feel? Oh man, I'm scared. Like, I'm nervous. I'm still going to get up here. I'm still going to get on this stage. I'm still going to go talk to this person, but I'm nervous. And I feel like the times where I've acknowledged it, like not wallowed in it, but acknowledged it, it took the edge off of it a little bit, because I was willing to admit, man, I don't have it all figured out. You know, I'm 73, 74 podcasts in. I still don't know what I'm doing. I maybe only have 15, 20 episodes that I would listen to, but you just keep trying it. Now, I love your part about start taking yourself too seriously, because when I was in high school, we used to do this thing called Tie Day Friday. And my friends and I, we would dress up on Fridays. We wore suits and ties on Fridays. Because we say, you know, one day we're going to make a huge difference in the world, and we're just preparing now. And we took that to college with us. And every so often we would do a Tie Day Friday. We would dress up in suits and we would go to class. And we had these, you know, little briefcases, freshman, sophomore, junior. And man, people would laugh at us and they would say, what are you trying to prove? And who are you? And I mean, people said a lot of crazy things. Now, the funny thing is, you know what I do today? And I'm not just talking about pastorally, as a leadership speaker. You know what I do? I show up with a suit and tie on a briefcase.
Yeah. You were manifesting it before it even happened. Yeah.
So by the time I walked into it to experience it, to me, it was familiar. Michael Phelps's coach, the Olympic, you know, giant Michael Phelps, his coach said that Michael Phelps' training regimen always includes pretending to stand on the stage at the Olympics and pretending to hear the crowd cheer as they drape the gold medal around his neck. He practices standing on the medal stand as part of his swim routine, and says, whatever I got to do to get there, that's what I'm going to do. Wow. And I think we need to become comfortable with saying, you need to start practicing accepting the award for the best podcast or the top Audible book for the year. Practice accepting the award for the top 30 entrepreneurs under 30. Practice being recognized as a New York Times best-selling author, or getting the Nobel Peace Prize, or the Medal of Valor or Honor, or practice getting that honorary degree from Oakwood University for your humanitarian and entrepreneurial efforts. So by the time it happens, you can say to yourself, yeah, I've been here before and I've been working toward this.
Cool. That's all I have for you, man. That's all the ammo I got. I appreciate it. You bestowed a lot of gems on us, and I know my audience will greatly appreciate everything that you said. So, really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Happy to support you and your audience, man. Tell people to hit me up on my blog, pierresquinn.com. I got a lot of free stuff on there. I got a free leadership course that they can check out, and hit me up with your leadership questions, and check out the Leading While Green podcast. You know, after they listen to your podcast several times, check out the Leading While Green podcast as well.
Yeah. Are you on YouTube or on Instagram? Well, I know you're on Instagram. On any other social media platforms or anything like that?
Yeah. So I am on YouTube at Pierre Quinn TV on YouTube. On Instagram, Pierre Quinn, and I'm on LinkedIn. And here's why I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not cool. LinkedIn is not the sexy social media,
Nope.
but LinkedIn, that's where the people are that write checks.
Yeah. Yes.
Listen, if you're trying to get a job, listen. If you're trying to get a job, listen. If you're trying to get a job, you need to be on LinkedIn, because as soon as you apply for a job, just like every other facet of life, as soon as you apply, the first thing they do is go to social media.
Yep.
Now, some of y'all gonna have to clean up your social media, get it together. But they're gonna go to that LinkedIn. They're gonna see where you work. They're gonna see if you have recommendations, and especially if you're an entrepreneur in the information products or digital media space, that's what people look for to see if you're credible. So LinkedIn is where people write checks. So that's why I'm there.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my LinkedIn game together as we speak. 2 episodes ago, he's a campus editor, or was a campus editor for LinkedIn. So he was like, he has all the LinkedIn stuff. He has a crazy following on LinkedIn. So I'm trying to get up to him, one of those colleagues. I'm trying to hang with him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah. But I'm gonna put all of your plugs and links in the show notes so that people can access you and stuff, and be able to get to you quickly from there.
Absolutely, man. Love it. And anything I can do to help you and your tribe and help your people to continue to grow as a leader, I'd love to be able to do it and support you as you continue. Man, you got a great thing going, and you're inspiring a lot of people. The tough part is, and you got to be okay with it, everybody you inspire is not going to give you recognition. But hey, even if it was for one, it was worth it.
Well, there it is. A little bit longer than usual, but man, oh man, that was a lot to be learned in that episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you really think someone else can use this information, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with somebody. Share the link, screenshot it, and send it to someone on Instagram so they can look it up. Do something, because this knowledge needs to be spread to as many people as possible so that we can really maximize our potential and turn our muse into realities. If you want to connect or follow Pierre, all his links and connection spots will be in the show notes under this episode, so you can click those links to check him out. Thank you guys for listening to this episode. Rate and subscribe if you haven't already, so that other people can get a little glimpse about what the show is about and what to expect. Love y'all, and talk to you next week.
Well, that's the end of our MRP episode. Thank you for listening, everything, but it's time to go. We'll have a new one for you next week on the flip side. But until then, don't kill the vibe, subscribe. Don't kill the vibe, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Don't kill the vibe, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Don't kill the vibe, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Don't kill the vibe, make sure you go ahead and subscribe.